Hello world, welcome to the 79th climate change emergency protest here in Getysburg, Pennsylvania. It's 68 degrees, it is June 12th, 2020, and I'm in the USA. And next week will be the 80th climate change emergency protest, and that'll be on June 19th. Presently, the Black Lives Matter protests have abated, even though they should continue on forever, because obviously we have not engaged in any change as a society, and the politicians are just placating the movement and trying to act like they're doing something. In reality, they're doing nothing to significantly change what is happening to our population that is challenged by the police and our government, and has systemic intents on destroying and hurting them whenever the chances arise. One example is there's a Trump rally coming up on June 19th, which is known as Juneteenth in the black community, and they're going to have it in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which was the scene of 300 black people being killed in 1921. Indiscriminately for no reason at all. Not there is ever a reason to kill a whole bunch of people. 10,000 people were left homeless, and there were 40 blocks that were burned down. The reason behind it was the black population was finally getting ahead and starting to make money, and they didn't need the white population. They were business people, and the whole area was doing very well under the black population and what was going on. And so the white people just decided to just take everything they had from them, and it was a horror show. And the fact that Trump and his fucking idiots are having a rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma next week is just a slap in the face, and it's actually a stab in the heart. This will be the same as having a banquet at the Auschwitz Holocaust place in Germany, or during the as an anniversary of the first person incarcerated in Auschwitz, or having a group of people celebrating the fact that we had 9/11 in New York City. I mean, the fact that this is in Tulsa, Oklahoma is just insulting. It's racist. It's beyond any pale. And the fact that people allow Trump to do this, and the Republican National Committee to have a rally there, is just insulting, sick, and mentally ill. So if you're in the Republican Party and you're allowing this to happen and not calling them out on this, you really are culpable as to what's happening in America. And the worst is going to come. You keep squishing people down, and it's like Jello. It's going to come out in all sorts of directions that you don't anticipate. Got to cut the crap and step up and stand up to this fucking megalomaniac. Anyways, back to climate change. The game is rigged for the minorities as far as climate change goes. Usually, the minorities around the world, or brown people elsewhere in the world, are susceptible to the effects of climate change. It is the white middle class and upper class that has caused this issue. And so it's not only the game being fixed, the whole field is rigged as well. So there's no chance for the minorities to get ahead, or people brown skin or yellow skin or whatever, who actually are the majority in the world. It's going to become a whole issue that there's going to be cultural uprisings if we don't get a hold of this climate change issue. You get climate gentrification, in that you get people that can stay in their air-conditioned homes and go to air-conditioned work and whatnot. But people who are more challenged as far as jobs have to work outside and have to work in conditions that are not favorable. It's kind of funny that the frontline workers in this whole coronavirus issue were the ones that were doing the lesser paying jobs, whereas the cushy ones, we don't really need them. We don't need the executives to go to work every day. But we do need the hospital workers. We need the people to supply us with food, and those are the people we pay the least amount of money. And it is something to think about as to how we treat people concerning pay and medical coverage in the United States. So basically, it's a white racism issue going on with this, with climate change as well. More susceptible to hurricanes and fire damage, and if the power grid goes down, the people that can't afford it are going to, such as in Appalachia as well, the people that can't afford it are going to be the ones that suffer the most. So you got the coronavirus issue, and then the protest was a prime example of what's going to happen in a real climate crisis when it finally occurs in the United States and the rest of the world. The government response and police response is one towards military action towards its own population. And the idea that things are going to be okay when this occurs is just absolutely ludicrous. They're going to lock you down and you won't be able to get any food. You're going to probably most likely starve to death in your house, and it's going to cause massive social unrest. The climate change issue is a huge issue that's going to affect everyone in the world, and not just a smaller population. And if you think you're whitey and you're going to get away with this stuff, you're not. It's going to come home to roost. It's a violation of human rights issue, what was going on during the protests. You know, the police and the government, the military and the government were outright attacking its own population here in the United States. And, you know, people were peaceful protesting, and they were getting rubber bulleted, and they were getting tear gas and flash grenades and really sick behavior. They're also attacking media, and they arrested media people as well. So the idea that the government's going to behave properly in the event of a climate crisis is absolutely ludicrous, and you can't believe that they're going to behave themselves. So it would behoove everyone to start getting out and putting pressure on your politicians to get this climate crisis under control, or at least mitigate it. But good luck with that. You know, laws that were passed during the coronavirus benefited the rich. It was a $2 trillion package in the United States, but with leverage and the ability to borrow against that money, corporations and the very rich were able to leverage that into $7 trillion. During the coronavirus package, the bailout, there's a 19% growth in wealth of the richest people in the United States. 19% increase during the coronavirus, not a loss in income or resources, but a growth in resources. So let me see. For right now, the CO2 level is 415.77 parts per billion, which doesn't sound like anything to anyone. But as those of you who have been watching, we're at 415, 417, 418 parts per billion, and only 280 parts per billion to 200 parts per billion are survivable. 415, we're locking into an 8 to 10 to 15 degrees Celsius rise in temperatures, and it is absolutely unsurvivable. The United Nations seems to think that 2 degrees is acceptable, and we're seeing all these changes at a supposed 1.2, 1.5 degree increase in temperatures right now. So we're in for a hell coming, you know. So the idea is centered around and doing nothing and not showing up for protests or creating protests of your own, posting massive amounts on Facebook or social media is needed. And if you don't do it, you know, when this stuff starts coming down, you can look back in the mirror and just realize you did not do anything and to save yourself or your children or your 7 generations away children. Coronavirus has caused the loss of the aerosol masking effect, and that there wasn't as much pollution in the air, so skies started clearing up. Well, what that did was cause the highest temperature ever for May around the world during this period of non-polluting. And so it's an example of the pollution actually kind of saves us as far as the particulates in the air. Either way, we're damned if we do, damned if we don't. We need to clean up the air, but if the air gets cleaned up, then the temperatures go up. But if the air doesn't get cleaned up, the CO2 continues to rise, as it has been, and we end up with more heating in the long run. There's a 15-year time lag between CO2 levels and temperatures catching up. So right now we're living in the year 2000, 2005, before the iPhones got going and the coal plants started coming online for China. So we're gonna have to pay the price for 15, 20 years of excess as far as buying what we wanted to buy, plastics and things like that. What will happen is that there's going to be eventually by 2025 a blue ocean event in the Arctic, meaning that there won't be any sea ice in September, and then the following years after that it'll be August and then October and June, July, and eventually there will be no sea ice at all in the Arctic during the summer months at the very least. What it does though is cause heating up in the Arctic, and the last place it's going to hold on will be the very North Pole for the sea ice, but the edges around the land masses will absolutely melt away before that, as they are now, and that's where all the methane is located, in the shallow seas. So you're going to get methane escaping in the atmosphere, which is a greenhouse gas that's 160 times more potent than is CO2. What it'll cause is exponential heating and a massive heating effect almost right away, and we're in trouble. People don't know what's happening in the world. The media's not reporting it. Runaway heating is going to be an issue that we cannot recover from. Plants and the things we eat will die off, and there'll be mass starvation. And the reason why I'm telling you this stuff is because people need to know the truth, what's happening, what's coming, and if you keep sitting on your hands, this is what we're in for. Right now, there's a very great risk of ending it all. We're on the edge of food insecurity at any given time. The grid is going down. Could go down, the electricity and all, and if that happens, you don't have any air conditioning, no gas, all society basically stops if there's no electricity. Right now in China, there's the news isn't reporting. The media is owned by 6 corporations basically in the United States, and the news isn't reporting about the locusts in the Middle East and also in Africa. In Pakistan, for example, they're saying that 25 million people could starve to death. You have floods going on in China. You have western fires in the United States going on right now in Tucson area, and you're having them break out in Oklahoma as well. So eventually the West, who's in a semi-drought, will eventually start catching fire again, and it won't be a good situation, obviously. And much of our food is produced in California, and who knows how that could affect everything. At the very least, the grid will go down there when fires hit that area. You got fires in Siberia, you got fires in the Arctic area, above the Arctic Circle going on. What has happened is the peat bogs were smoldering, and now the ice is melting away. And it's like a zombie fire in that they pop out of nowhere, and once the ice melts and things dry up. And the danger of that is there's a massive amount of carbon stored in the peat bogs, and once they catch fire, it just goes up into the atmosphere, greatly increasing the CO2 levels in around the planet. Unless we change, we're due for a horror show, and it's not a good situation. You have the 2 people running for president, Biden and Trump, and they'll probably divide the country even more. And like it or not, they're going to have to deal with, they're going to have to deal with, in 2 years after the next term starts up, the massive climate change happening around the United States and around the world. And, whether they're going to use the military or police is probably pretty well a given based on their past performance. Each candidate does not understand the dire situation we're in with climate change. And I did have a thought on things in the United States, in that 50% of the population in the last presidential election didn't even bother to vote. Well, if those people, only half of them decided to vote in the next election and jump into the Green Party, for example, they could have a candidate of their own that they want. And the Green Party platform is very well oriented towards climate change and how to affect it, and curtailing endless wars. So people might want to check out the Green Party platform, and if people voted in mass with the Green Party, if you're going to not vote at all, why not just throw your vote into the Green Party and see what happens? They would actually win by a landslide in the next presidential election, but people don't understand that. They say third parties can't win, but the last protests proved that mass amounts of people getting together can make temporary changes in things. So, if you're disaffected, you probably need to consider that. In a massive climate change issue, if things go as I anticipate due to food insecurity and habitat loss, you're going to end up in a Mad Max situation. So it's going to come down to criminal activity and people surviving by stealing from each other or doing whatever means necessary to get ahead. Money will become irrelevant. If you don't have a government, If you don't have a government that's viable or people recognize, or you can't get a hold of money, money becomes irrelevant. You're going to be back to a barter system, and we rely heavily on technology. So all these trucks and everything going on here in Getysburg right now, and endless cars, will become worthless. They'll just become a pile of metal. So it might be a place you could sleep, but they won't be able to run it all because it'll be out of gasoline or can't be repaired. So humans are basically fragile, and we're running on the edge of a precipice. And if we keep along this path, we're definitely on the path to extinction. And you can count on it by 2026. Bad, terrible, horrible things are going to happen. But I anticipate by 2023, as I said, the second year into the term for the next president, that they're going to have to deal with some issues that they do not anticipate and they do not put on the radar right now. So we need to get together as a group. People need to get out and vote en masse for a candidate. And I'm not saying Biden or Trump for sure, but you need to find a candidate that you can believe in, that believes in climate change and will affect climate, take direct action and try to save our lives. Or everyone can stay home and sit on their hands and just wait for the inevitable to come. I don't recommend that, but that's what's happening right now. I don't see any action around here. It's big empty. So hopefully, next week someone will turn out, and I anticipate doing this on June 19th. As I said, that's the 80th climate change rally here in Getysburg, Pennsylvania. See you later.